Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to this Remarketing Forum breakout session. Welcome also to our two guests for today, which is Morten Holsten, who is Global Director at Autorola Marketplace, and Andrew Shields, Global Business Unit Director at Indicata. We are ready for a very exciting session, how to maximize your remarketing sales with data. I think data is a topic that's going on everywhere around the summit, whether we're talking main stage sessions for corporate fleets or whether we're talking remarketing, data is coming back everywhere. I think it's something that will seriously influence our future in every part of the fleet industry. So we are very much looking forward to this presentation. To everybody that is looking at this breakout session, may I ask you, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. At the end of this presentation, then we will do a short Q&A to answer as much of the questions that we can in the breakout. So without further ado, Andrew, I think you're going to start, so I hand over to you. Enjoy.
Super. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes. Our presentation is about how you maximize remarketing sales with market data and an understanding of who the buyers actually are in the market. Let me first just give you a bit of a background as to us, Indicata, and actually Autorola Group, because this is a presentation on behalf of the Autorola Group, which is a global leader in online remarketing and automotive IT solutions. We have 450 employees and we operate across 22 different countries globally, ranging from Australia through to mainland Europe and across to the Americas in terms of Mexico, Brazil, and the States. Our customer base is wide and various. We operate with leasing companies, with daily rental companies, with dealer groups, and with OEMs, but very much in the blue chip arena, just representing the strength we have as an organization across the globe. Let me just first talk a little bit about how our organization's expertise maps across the overall remarketing challenge, and then we'll go into the data side in a little bit more focus. So if we start with the vehicle processing side of the business, it's all about optimizing efficiency, minimizing stock days, and creating a single vision of reality across all operations. And that's where Autorola Solutions, our solutions business unit, comes in. It's all about creating a bespoke IT system for controlling and managing vehicle processing, detailed experience. We've got detailed experience of cross-platform and cross-supplier integration, and we give a consolidated view of reality to the users of our systems, bringing together multiple different vendor systems. In terms of planning, pricing, and benchmarking, it's about controlling cross-border, optimizing price, and assessing the performance of the vehicles that you've got to remarket. And that's where my division comes in terms of Indicata. We've got market-driven intelligence that allows data-driven decision-making, pricing, market analysis, and we also assess the vehicle attractiveness and advise on pricing strategies to vendors. And finally, sales mechanisms is driven by our Autorola Marketplace, and Morten here is with me to talk about that. But it's all about creating a full service auction from a range of different sales platform methodologies. And we provide not just the platforms, but all the logistics, invoicing, customer handling behind that to maximize sales price through optimizing the competition and service delivery that we can give your vehicles. So as an integrated unit, we're very much set up to match the challenge of the remarketing landscape. So let's firstly, before we get on to the remarketing challenge, let's talk about the marketing challenge. And there's an old phrase that says 50% of marketing spend is wasted. The challenge is actually knowing which 50% it is that you're wasting. Well, in the remarketing landscape, there's a remarketing challenge that says for every car, there's one buyer who'll pay more than any other. The real difficulty is knowing who they are, finding them, and talking to them. If we look at the Indicata pricing and analysis work that we do, and I covered this off in the earlier presentation, we pull data in from many sources, we analyze it, and we produce a range of tools. But this gives us a unique insight as to who the buyers and sellers of vehicles are across the whole of Europe. All this data we then bring together into a data warehouse. And within that data warehouse, we have all the seller data, we have market stock data, we have history of market sales, volumes and pricing, and actually we also have a really good understanding of what new vehicles are coming onto the market. Now, if I look at that and analyze what we then have in the dealer area, if I start with our seller data, this chart just basically gives you an illustration of the amount of buyers that we've got by country, where we have a full understanding of what vehicles they stock and how they perform. In total, it's 140,000 dealers across Europe, of which 80,000 have more than 10 cars in stock. In terms of that stock, what do we store? Well, we store the whole vehicle advert that the dealer has got. So we know what vehicle it is. We have photography so that we can actually identify things like model year if it's not correctly described in the vehicle advert. And we have a full overview of the type of vehicle down to engine, petrol, automatic, wheel drive, etc. That data we all bring together in our various reporting tools, so we can analyze and understand for any individual particular vehicle the full track history of the pricing of that vehicle, but we can then consolidate that to understand the true performance of every single dealer in the market. Once we get into market sales information for any dealer in Europe, we can then understand their exact sales by model. And so this is a dealer that we have on the system, has 490 cars across their dealer group in total because they centralize buying, and we can see the models that they are that they have sold in the last month. What we can then do is we can overlay onto that stock information, so we can understand exactly how well stocked they are. Combining those two elements together, as I illustrated in my presentation earlier, we then can understand what the stock turn is, and by doing that we can then identify which for the dealer where they have shortages of stock. In this case, in Pulsar, the dealer has 9 cars in stock but has sold 13 cars in the last month, so he's got a stock turn of 17. This is a dealer who's going to be very interested in buying Pulsars, and if we've got them to sell, this is a dealer that we want to have a conversation with. That data we can even drill down and understand at a range of different levels. We can understand it by trim, we can understand it by engine, we can understand it by body type. And on top of that, because we are very much into pricing information, we can understand the price position of this dealer as well. As a result, what we can do is really identify the best buyers for the cars across the whole of Europe, dependent on the model and the price of that vehicle. And in doing that, what we do is we go through a process of identifying the dealer's buy-sell attributes. What type of dealer are they? So if I look at that, are they a dealer that sells young cars? Are they selling cars that are under 18 months old? Are they selling cars that are older, over 48 months? Are they dealers that sell vehicles with low mileage or high mileage? Do they specialize in a particular segment? Are they executive car dealers? Are they generalists? Are they small car dealers? Do they specialize in 4x4? So we can really get an understanding of what that sort of dealer we have there. What's their market pricing? Again, does that dealer specialize in cheap cars or expensive cars? And what's their pricing against the marketplace? Are they a high-priced dealer who's able to buy maybe richer cars, or a low-priced dealer who's looking for fast stock turn and bargains? And then we can also look at brand focus. Is this a franchise dealer that's got a very single brand focus? Is it a dealership that maybe has got a couple of brands in it, so operates with those? Or is it a generalist that tends to focus on really any sort of used car, so long as it fits in the above categories overall? Or is it a dealer that focuses on 4x4s? And finally, as I said, we've got a really good understanding of the sort of sales volumes that dealer has, and also the nature of the stock turn. From that, we can then target for every vehicle a target. We can find a target dealer. So if I take, in this situation, a Ford Focus 1.5 TDCi ST line, 36,000 miles, 45,000 kilometers, so 36 months, 45,000 kilometers. What we can then do is we can map across that and identify all the dealers who could be potentially interested for that vehicle. And then we can drill down by country and understand where the best price is and we can understand which dealers are short supply of that particular vehicle and therefore interested in buying it. So overall, that's how we use data to identify which dealer is the most likely to buy any one particular vehicle. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Morten, who will then take you through how we really then do that matching in the real world and convert that into sales. Morten.
Thank you, Andy. As we have heard earlier today, both from you but also from others, demand has not been a challenge in the last half year for most of our customers and our competitors in the market. So why at all try to find the right buyer or car when there is a over demand in the market? But what we also see now, and what you presented earlier today, is that we can see now that demand is slowly starting to decreasing. So meaning that it gets more and more important again to be sure that we have the right dealers in for every single car. So please switch, Andy. What we have been doing traditionally in the business is to ensure to find the right dealer for a car is to send out a lot of auction catalogs where dealers can see all the cars which is on auction. And then we have all presented websites where you can find and search for the cars you want to bid on or buy, either by having favorite sellers, favorite vendors, leasing companies where you want to buy the cars from, so you go in and look directly on their auctions, or by using the traditional search functions, searching on brand, searching on engine size, searching on mileage and stuff like that, and find the cars which fits to you. But let me try show you why this is not enough anymore. When I started 15, 16 years ago on the auctions, we had approximately 100 cars on auction per day, meaning that it was quite easy to go through every single car and find the cars which you needed or which fitted into your business. Today, Autorola, or in 2019, we had 856,000 cars on the auction. We had buyers from 40 different countries who wanted to buy these cars, and we ended 29,000 auctions. So this meant that the hammer actually goes down 3,700 times every single auction day, or 18,500 times per week. Yeah, please switch, Andy. And as I said, we then have buyers from 40 different markets. But let's try to look a little bit into this. If you will click 3 more times, Andy. Because there's a reason why we need this targeted demand. Of course, we have some bidders we can take away from the total picture, and some cars we can take away from this total picture. For instance, our cars and dealers in Brazil, Mexico, and Australia, due to some geographical distances, they are not the buyers of our car in main Europe. The bidders from Turkey, they cannot import cars, and we cannot import cars from Turkey. They're not allowed to export. And from Portugal, we are not allowed to export cars. And then we have the UK, which I also will lead out of this example due to that they have a little bit of challenge with the steering wheel compared to the rest of Europe. So if you focus about the main Europe and look at the number of cars we have on auction per day, then try click again, Andy. Then we have approximately 15,900 vehicles per week going through the auction. So considering being a buyer on the platform and finding the cars which is relevant for you, and knowing that an average dealer on Autorola, he actually bids on 7.1 vehicles per week, then he needs to find the most relevant out of the 15,000 or almost 16,000 cars per week to find the 7 which really fits into his business. And as we know, also for a car dealer, time is money. So what we want to do by giving them the right tools and by having the right tools ourselves is that we want to minimize the time they spend in looking for the cars. And by having indicator in our organization, then we actually have information that they do not have, or some of them do not have. So what we can do by combining what Andy showed us just before, the knowledge we have from indicator, with the behavior we know for our dealers, how they behave on the auction, then bringing all this together, this data set together, then we can look into whenever we have a car, a specific car, who is then the dealers in our network, in our auction network, who have the highest possibility to buy this car. So what we can do is now that we can focus our email correspondence, our call activities, and communicate with the dealers who have the highest likelihood to have an interest in this car. Meaning that instead of a dealer receiving 15,000 cars per week in his inbox, then he will receive maybe only 200 cars, but 200 cars which has a relevance for him as a dealer. But what we also can do by having these tools, please going one step back again, Andy, is that we can also identify the dealers which is not in our network, in our auction network already, but who have a high likelihood of the need of these cars. So we can invite them into our platform and invite them in with relevant cars for them. Yeah, please switch. So what we see right here is very small numbers, very small details, but it is actually just an example from our tool where we have searched for a car, a specific brand, a specific make. We have put in some criteria about this car. And then what the system can tell us is which dealers have the highest likelihood of being interested in this car. And this data we can export and use it in our marketing activities towards all our dealers, but to make it more relevant. But what we also can do, if you switch to the next one, is that today we have started a project which still is in the beta phase, but where we go in and offer a single dealer or a dealer group to help them by purchasing the cars, finding the cars they need mostly for their business, and actually using the data from Indicator to find the absolutely best cars for them. So looking at the example that Andy had before, where he looked at a group, a dealer group who is specialized in Nissan, and what we can see right there is that there are specific models of the Nissans which perform better in their business than other models, and even down to the trim type, which of these trims perform best when they have them in their showroom where they sell them best. So by using this data, then we can look into which cars ends today on the auction, and then we can send them every day a list with cars which is specific, performing good in their dealerships. So the example right here is showing that a Nissan Pulsar 1.2 in the trim N-connector or N-connector style is performing, here they are performing better than the market when they sell the car, both with a very high turn rate, meaning that they do not have them on stock that long. Again, short stock time means you can pay a higher price for the car. But also what we can see with this car is that when they have sold these cars, they have sold them at an index of 103.5 compared to the average market price, meaning that they also have a possibility to pay a higher price on the market, on the auction in trade-in price, and still earn the money they need to earn on the car. So why is this a benefit for them and for us and for our vendors? If you try switch to the next one. What we can do by doing this is that instead of the dealer, maybe we could have showed him all the Nissans we have on the auction, because we know that he's interested and that he likes to sell Nissans. But showing him the cars where he can sell them at a higher price than the average price in the market also means that he has the ability of bidding a little bit higher on the auction, and by that increasing his winning chances on the auction. So instead of bidding on 20 cars where he probably wouldn't have the highest bid on 17 of those, there we can show him the 3 cars where he have the highest likelihood of winning the car by bidding the right price. And we can also show him which price he should bid. We do not know what others are going to bid, but which price he should bid, so it fits into his stock and where he's able to sell it with the right profit which is needed for him, but giving him an opportunity which is higher. So for the buyer, we can make them spend less time by showing them the cars where they have the highest likelihood to win the cars. Of course, this means for the sellers, by always finding the right bidders who have the ability to pay a little bit more than the rest, then we can increase the average selling price for our sellers. And by using this targeted demand, then we can actually secure for everybody that we keep up the residual values as high as possible by ensuring finding the right buyer for each and every single car. So a little bit how Andy's, you can say, big data set can create the knowledge, and how we in the real world on the auction platform can use this knowledge to perform 2-3% better than the average by making targeted demand, making targeted emailing, making targeted marketing towards the right dealers. And as Andy said in the beginning, then we can reduce the wasted marketing, the 50% wasted marketing, by having the right knowledge and the right data. So that will leave us to you, Sven, to manage if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, both of you. Yeah, first of all, so to all the participants, if you have questions, there's still time. You can put them in the chat. I have a couple of questions myself because I found a very interesting presentation, Morten and Andrew. The first question that I have is if we hear a lot of here at the summit flexibility. Flexibility is a buzzword, we know that, but it is something that is being increasingly demanded by customers of leasing companies, for example, meaning that the standard average 48-month contract for a lease contract, for example, might go down a little bit or needs to become more flexible. That also, of course, creates some challenges for the remarketing departments with those leasing companies, because if they want to offer that flexibility, they need to still make rid of the car at the best possible price. So with your data, does that allow sellers like leasing companies to see when is the optimum time to sell a vehicle? So and not saying, okay, I have a vehicle right now, what is the best way to sell them, but no, really looking in 3 months' time, these vehicles will come in. It's better to keep those on board for a couple more months, or it's better to take those already out 2 months earlier. Is that something that you could help with from a data perspective, Andrew?
So if I answer some of that, and then Morten, please chip in. Firstly, I think from an identification of which vehicles to sell, our systems are very good. What we aim to do is not just provide a price for a vehicle or who sells the vehicle, because we've got an understanding of the speed of turn, and that was something I talked about in my earlier presentation. We also then have an understanding of the attractiveness of a vehicle. Once we're looking at that side from a seller's point of view, we call that market day supply. And what that does is it allows us to understand whether a vehicle is a fast-moving vehicle or a slow-moving vehicle, all the way down to the engine and trim denomination of that vehicle. What that will then allow vendors of vehicles to do is to look at their portfolio of cars that are due to being defleeted and understand whether those vehicles are the ones that they should be defleeting because there is a strong market for those, or is that a problem car at the current marketplace? The other thing that they can then do is they can then track the history of the movement of market day supply, the vehicle attractiveness, to see whether that's an improving vehicle or a worsening vehicle, and again make decisions as to whether they should take those vehicles off at that point, or whether they make decisions to push vehicles and do later defleets. So by having a look at market day supply, you get a really good understanding of the attractiveness of a vehicle today, and you can also get ideas of trends. Coupled with that, if we bring in the Market Watch data that I shared with today, that basically will give the users a much better understanding of the overall dynamics of the marketplace. And as an organization, we regularly put out white papers and strategic reports that give understanding of what may or may not happen in the future to help in that sort of decision making of our customers. Morten, anything you
I
can
can
add
add
to
a little bit, because in real life, this has already been existing for a lot of years, where this need for the leasing companies to ensure that they defleet the car at the right time. So we have customers today, which are customers in all our 3 business units, having the fleet monitor to control all the portfolio of vehicles running through. And in that aspect, they have a constant insight in what is the value of the car we have in our running fleet right now compared to the depreciated value we have in our books, meaning that they can actually on a daily business go in and look, do we have cars where we right now would have an advantage of selling it, meaning taking it out of the fleet before time, simply because we can see that we have a huge possible upside in selling the car right now. But as you also say, this will be more and more need due to that we see more flexible contracts, 12 months contracts, 6-month contract, private lease contracts where the lessee can get out of the contract before time without any punishment after 12 months, meaning that they need to know what is the risk constantly and when is the right time to try to send out new possibilities for their customers. So yes, it already works today in that way.
Great.
Yeah. And if I add a little bit to that, Morten, I was talking to a global OEM the other day, and one of the challenges that they've got is to coordinate each of their country operations, because each country may have a visibility of what vehicles they've got and they have to defleet. But because so much stock now goes cross-border, to have an understanding from a central perspective of the whole picture then allows them to centrally coordinate the activity of individual country operations so that they don't overflood the market and take opportunities in other markets when they exist. Yeah. So again, that's the sort of data that we can provide.
Okay. Another question from my side. I think we still have a few more minutes. When you talked about a little bit how you scan the dealer market, just looking at that, if they change prices, which probably happens on a regular basis, how big is the impact of such price changes on, let's say, the resale value going through auction at a later point?
That's a really interesting question. One of the things that we do within our indicator systems is advise vendors, dealers, and remarketing companies on their pricing strategies. I'll give an example of, actually, this was with a retailer that we worked with, and they were on average having something like a 4-time stock turn, and which was obviously very, very low, and they were pricing their vehicles about 4% above the marketplace. The key thing that they didn't have within that, they needed a price above because they were a franchise dealer. They had all the approved used car programs, and they should be pricing higher than the marketplace, the market in general. But what they didn't have, it was a coherent pricing strategy to handle aging vehicles. What we did with them was we implemented pricing strategies that allowed them to optimize fresh stock that came into that dealership and maximize the price that they got there. But if they had vehicles that were beginning to age, to then take corrective actions and also to look at the market in terms of the attractiveness of that vehicle and then keep changing their pricing. We moved that dealer from changing its pricing on probably once every 30, 40-day basis to changing its pricing on probably once every 5 to 10 days. On average, they did it at about 7. And by doing that, what we found was that they were able to sustain this 4% premium overall because they priced fresh stocks in slightly higher and older stocks in slightly lower, but kept this 4% premium to the marketplace. But what they then ended up doing is they doubled their stock turn, they doubled their volume, and they doubled the margin, the overall gross profit that business made. So by taking that sort of pricing strategy action in place, by using the sort of indicator data that we've got, dealers and vendors can make much better, faster decisions in terms of pricing to improve their performance.
That makes perfect sense. And again, shows the value of adequate data when making those decisions. All right, guys, I think we need to end here. I want to thank both of you very much. I think it was a very interesting session. To the audience, there is now time for networking. So on the left side of your screen, you can click, and it's a little bit like being at the bar. You never know who you're going to meet. The only thing missing is a beer, obviously, but that's something that you can take care of your own. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you to Autorola. Thank you, Morten. Thank you, Andrew. And we'll speak soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.